Hi, I'm Joyce. I'm the founder of Stochastic Potential, and we're also based here in New York. I was connected through Venture Miner from Matthias, and so very happy to be here. I have a background in neuroscience, and I'm relatively new to vibe coding, and so I'm very happy to learn and get more acclimated. Well, thank you everybody for being here. We see that in 2030, AI is going to automate about 30% of our work. And we see that today, 95% of AI initiatives aren't successful. So the systems that we live in today are broken. We see that, AI literacy and adoption is wildly uneven. And we see that companies are measuring productivity and efficiency, which are the exact metrics that AI is about to make irrelevant. So people are getting left behind, and this only amplifies some of our existing societal disparities. And this really begs the question, in the world of AI, what makes humans valuable? And I've been thinking a lot about that, and the answer is creativity. It's the one thing that machines can't replicate. It's our ability to imagine what doesn't yet exist, to connect unrelated dots in novel ways, and to experiment, adapt, and innovate and create. And we know that this works. McKinsey shows that creative companies grow 67% faster. Deloitte proves that they outperform by 10% annually, right? Look at Disney, Nike, Apple, they're creative companies at the very core, and they're massively successful. And so not just that, they have strong brands and very loyal customers. The problem is that while 77% of leaders say innovation is critical, only about 22% of them measure it, right? And when we do measure it, we're counting ideas. We're counting ideas submitted. We're the number of products created, their inputs and outputs, not the actual creative capacity. The bigger problem is that we don't actually know what creativity is. What are the drivers, variables, the conditions that foster creativity? Hold on one second. We don't actually know what it actually is. So what are the drivers, variables, and conditions that foster creativity? And what we can't measure, we can't optimize for, and that means we can't build systems to amplify it. And that's exactly what we're trying to do as the Stochastic Potential. We are a creativity intelligence AI research lab, building the science of organizational creativity to really prove that it can be measured, tracked, and optimized just like productivity and just like any other business metric. We see the incredible opportunity here to address our core problems, right? To redesign the systems that we live and work in, to measure what really truly matters and identify qualities that measure success. And we have to do this now because the longer that we wait, the harder the challenges become and the larger the gaps get, right? And we have to make sure that we're solving not just today's creativity problem, but tomorrow's as well. And so this provides a holistic solution that merges 3 different markets across startups, legacy enterprises, as well as academic and educational institutions. And so this really isn't a traditional SaaS play. We're building the foundational infrastructure, the measurement system for the post-productivity era. And long term, we want this to become the standard for how organizations measure human potential. Some of the things that we want to study at the intersection of creativity and business are things like, is there a formula for creativity? If so, what are the variables that most effectively increase creative capacity at individual levels, team levels, and organizational levels? And so we are bringing a scientific and business approach to building the foundations of a new operating system across product, scientific literature, and then testing with our pilot and our research partners. I've lived at the intersection of human behavior and business operations and creative systems, and really bridged the human systems with the business strategy. And further, my lived experience in rebuilding my life and cognitive systems after an injury gives me a unique perspective and deeper insight into this domain. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen how creative capacity goes undervalued on teams and organizations. I've seen how some of the best ideas die and fail because there's no system to really nurture and cultivate them. So our ultimate goal here is to decode the science of creativity and build the systems that transform human intangibles into strategic assets. Because we believe that in 10 years, creativity metrics will be measured right alongside productivity, right alongside revenue. And so we really want to build the systems, culture, and infrastructure that allows us to operate at our best and to fill our fullest potential. Ultimately, it always has been and will be our goal to see the best and the brightest of humanity. And so if this excites you, join me on the journey and let's build this together. Thank you.
Yeah. Who wants to go first? Okay.
Joyce, that's a really great presentation. I always had this question with the AI, trying to replace developers, artists, and everyone. Like all these folks have one thing in common, which is being creative. But I do have a question. People tend to say creativity is subjective, right? Like revenue can be measured by a number. If you say it's like $1 million and I say $1 million, it's the same. But something that you see creative might not be creative for me. Something that I see creative might not be creative for you. But how will you measure that?
I think that we can boil it down to different factors, right? There's different variables that lead to creativity, whether it's subjectively interpreted as creative or not, right? We see creativity across different industries like music, art. You can be creative in the technology space, in product, in academia, in literature. And so there's foundations that lead to the conditions that lead to creativity. And so that's really what we're studying. We're not really studying the subjective or objective value of what creativity is and assessing that. We're studying the actual process of creativity. What are the components of the creative process, and what are the variables, frameworks, and conditions in which that occur to help foster that on individuals, teams, and organizational levels.
Okay. So you do measure the results come out of the creative changes, right? That's what you pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Hey Joyce, I had a quick follow-up question. Could you tell me who are the main user personas or types of customers that are likely to be interested in your solutions?
Yeah, so I'm thinking through executive teams where we see that as AI takes over a lot of our non-creative tasks in terms of optimizing efficiency and productivity, they're thinking through how do we drive innovation on their teams and organizations, right? How do we think through not the next product feature in a year, but in 5 years, in 10 years? And we have to start building those frameworks into our teams today. And so we're aiming for executives like CEOs, COOs, strategies, innovation officers at these companies.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey Joyce, I had a question. Before that, it was really a very thoughtful presentation. I loved the entire idea. So one thing that caught my eye was you talked about partnerships with institutions, right? Could you just talk me about it? How these collaborations would typically work? Are you running some studies with them, or are you publishing your findings with them? How is it working?
Yeah, so there's several ways that we could partner with research and academic institutions. I think one, they have a whole host of academic research and scientific research that's already been done, right? And right now there's a gap between academia and the actual execution in the corporate setting. So one would be working with them to actually mitigate and execute and build them those frameworks out and test it in corporate settings. The second way, as you mentioned, would be to partner with them on research studies. So when they are doing these types of studies, partnering with them to figure out, can we pilot, can we experiment, and scope out some sort of pilot with these companies. And so those are some of the ways that we're thinking through working with research companies. I think another idea is, because the world is changing so quickly, there's so much that we could do together, and we're just exploring what some of those options and possibilities could be.
Thank you. Thanks for answering. Thank you.
Hey Joyce, great presentation. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, do you see this as playing in the space of other companies similar to Gartner, right, who are more research driven and provide value to the executives, right, in terms of market insights and data points? What are your thoughts? Is that what you're thinking with stochastic potential?
So there's several ways that we could go with this. So one is partnering with institutions like Gartner, some of the other consulting research arms like McKinsey, Deloitte, Bain, BCG, to do some sort of collaborations with them. And then the ultimate goal is to productize some of these offerings, right? And so as we figure out what these solutions, what these frameworks, and what these systems could be, how do we codify these into products so that we could actually create the conditions for creativity and innovation at scale?
Thank you.
Hey Joyce, really nice presentation. Love the vibe in there, like you wanted to communicate. For sure, we need creativity in every space, for sure. That's a bare minimum. Now we are talking with AI coming into picture, right? My question to you is around, like, you have called out creativity metrics. Have you quantified those metrics? Like, do you know like which all creativity metrics you are targeting? That is number one. Second one is, with AI coming into picture, right? There is a lot of governance also. There can be some creative ways where you actually can go into a prohibited AI space as well, right? How are you guard railing those and making sure that you are not moving or making any such moves which are into a prohibited AI space, and protecting yourself to not go into a space which you are not even sure of, right? Or gray areas for you, right? So please share some thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I could address the first part first. So in terms of quantitative metrics and creativity, I think there's a lot of research out there. So we haven't figured out what those metrics are. That's going to be the stuff that we're researching, right? So working with companies, building on top of academic research to figure out what are these quantitative metrics and variables that we want to study, and how do we then create pilots, experiments with them, and we can study them over time as well. And to answer your second question in terms of guardrails, this is a critical part of just the AI landscape, and the way that we're building out this company is making sure that we're doing this in a responsible way that preserves the unique things that make us human. That is the crux of why I started this company, is how do we make sure that we're not losing the unique intangible human qualities, and how do we foster that, assess that, so that we can cultivate it and preserve it and protect it in the age of AI. So some of the frameworks that we're leveraging are looking at existing guardrails and frameworks that exist on a global scale. So for example, UN has some frameworks and perspectives in responsible AI. And so there's different legislation that's come out across the European Union. And so leveraging some of those frameworks to make sure that we're building out our offerings and our research in a responsible manner.
Mm-hmm. I had just one follow-up on that as well, like just to understand your thought process. You are thinking to have this company to scale it not just in North America but also across the globe, right? That's your aspiration for sure, correct?
Yes. So we're not limiting. I'm not limiting ourselves to just being researched in one location or one geography. There's creativity on a global scale, and so let's study that and let's amplify that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very interesting because different regions have different governance or ethics, right? Especially like with EU AI Ethics Act coming into play, right? You'll have to keep some things off, like turn on and turn off. You have to have those features enabled and disabled for different regions. So just to be cautious on that, I'll just leave it here. Maybe you can think through on it and definitely try to optimize your thought process on that.
Thank you.
How did you come up with this? And the main question, do you have like visualize competitors into the market, and how we're going to use like marketing? Because this is like hard talking. And I feel like whenever you do user not so friendly apps or ideas, it tends to get like into the market and doesn't get like any traction. So how are you trying to come up with this?
So the story behind how I came up with this is, I think everyone has felt at one point in their lives they aren't living up to the full potential, that they could be doing more. And that really is a painful feeling. And so we're solving for that feeling both on an individual level and at scale, because that has the opportunity to just become amplified in the age of AI, where things are moving so quickly that people are getting left behind. And so that was one of the genesis behind the company being created. I think in terms of a competitive landscape, there's several competitors from a different perspective. So there's consulting, who provides some of these consulting AI implementation work for companies and startups. There are in-house creative teams who are doing this type of work to research innovation, different topics on internal teams. So we would just partner with some of these collaborators, as well as existing research from educational and research institutions. But as mentioned, they're focusing primarily from a scientific and an academic perspective. And there's a gap between the actual execution and bridging between academia and corporate. And so we would work and partner with these different players in the field to actually create a holistic solution.
And about this, because I feel like you have a very good overview about the product and an optimistic idea, but whenever you get like to hard things to explain and for like normal people to understand, do you feel like you have great traction with those people as well? Do you feel like your application could embed it into not so technical or not so understandable people that like they can use into the day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think that everyone can be creative. I think that we've just lost that as we've gotten older. So I think it resonates with everybody, whether they're an artist, whether they're in education. How do we make sure that we preserve some of our just divergent thinking across all of our populations?
Great. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your presentation. I'm very happy to have you here. And you want to say your last words before we move along to the next pitch?
Well, thank you all for having me. I'm very excited. This is my first pitch, and so I'm very excited to learn and be here. Thank you so much.